I don't know who thought this was a good idea. 16 days ago, we launched our first DIY kit on our website. Within 4 hours, this happened.
What? They just keep coming.
We completely sold out in under a day. And that was only available in Australia. 7 days later, we got our next order. And since being back in stock, we've already sold more than half. I think it's fair to say, this might just work. I reckon we're ready to move on to an actual design. But as expected, we definitely made a mistake. Something that we completely overlooked last time was the packaging. I was under the assumption that we could just buy a box that was going to fit our DIY kit perfectly. It took a couple of days to realise we had to custom order boxes if we want them to fit right. To get them for a reasonable price, we're looking at ordering 500 at a time. So with this kit, I'm going to keep it in mind from the start as to what size packaging we need and that we need to order it as soon as we possibly can. Because last time it cost us. We couldn't get a 500ml by 300ml by 100ml box anywhere. We ended up having to pay $7 for branded boxes, $40 for postage because they were so much bigger than what we needed. We ended up paying nearly $500 on top of what we expected just because we did some average planning. My partner ended up finding these boxes here and they were actually perfect. They brought our shipping down from $40 each down to about 25. In the end, it wasn't a big deal, but something small like that was enough to kill our profits. And I don't want to make the same mistake again, especially if we're ordering boxes in quantities of 500 or sending out big shipments at one time.
So phase 2, I'm going to call it model number 1, a one-day DIY kit. I'll do all the drawing and design myself, something boat related. It's going to have to relate to our channel somehow. Next thing, it still has to be good value for money. I don't want them to pay more for a DIY project than something that they'd buy off the shelf for less. And the worst part, I want to have it ready within 2 weeks.
After about 4 hours of looking into cost of materials, I think we have the perfect first item. To buy an aluminium bait board for your boat, they start at around $650. If you want one with a live bait tank, they go straight up to $800 and it only goes up from there. Here's another Australian made one. It's probably going to be a little bit bigger than our first model, but that's upward of $1,800. Doesn't come with plumbing or hoses or anything like that. I have no doubt it's worth it. At least I know this is the benchmark and we can definitely make something cheaper than this. Something else I noticed, they're a lot bigger than anything you'd want on a real small boat. I've got a 4.5 meter boat and this would look humongous on it. I was thinking it's something that I want, so I'm sure someone else wants it as well. The next thing, we got to draw one up. It needs to be something a bit different than what's already out there. I'll be the first to admit, I'm not that flash on AutoCAD, but I can sort of fumble my way through it. If we're going to be making more designs, I'm going to have to get better at it. And there's only one way to do that, and that's practice. So we've done it. We've got our first design. I'll make it look like it took me about 30 seconds, but really took me about 6 hours. We've got a HDPE cutting board to remove. We've got a little access hatch underneath it. Something I don't like about the other cutting boards is when you lift up the lid, there's nowhere to chuck your bait. I like the idea of just being able to push your bait off to the side so you can get into your bait tank without having to ditch all your bait. Something else I see a lot of boards don't have is this trough back here. I like having the trough so you can chuck things in when you're motoring along and it doesn't slide off, especially in a tinny because you're moving around a lot. We've put rod holders here. I think we're going to have that as an option because not every boat's going to be suitable to have rod holders on, say, especially if you mount it on the side of the boat. You don't want rods hanging off the side of your boat. The window for the bait tank, I've just left little tabs so it doesn't distort too much when you're welding and they can cut that out afterwards. I've added a surrounds behind it as well so the bolts aren't pulling against the perspex and breaking it. We've got a cup holder. It's a bit of folded 3mm aluminium with a 3D printed plastic top on it. It should be big enough to fit a stubby holder in it as well. I've got these nice slots here. I'm not sure if every model should have that. We've got a drain hole back here. That'll be just the right size for 19mm hose and you can run that wherever you want it. I've tried to make it as easy as possible to fabricate. So we've got these little tab and slot type situations on the two edges. So they'll just overlap about 1mm, about half the thickness of the plate. It should just sort of slot together and hold in place. I've made it reasonably small, a lot smaller than what else is out there. When you're on a sub 5 meter boat, you don't want a big bait board. Well, I don't at least anyways, and I hope other people feel the same way. I've gone through it, I've made 2D drawings, and it goes through like a full assembly sequence and what goes together first. This actually took me just as long as the model did. And then we've got the fold details for all the parts, which we wouldn't supply to the buyer, we just supply it to our manufacturer. The only thing I've got left to do now is go through and make all the DXF cut files to send off to our manufacturer. And no doubt he'll tell us that we've made a few mistakes in the design and he can't fold it, or something's not going to fit in the press. But that's part of the experience.
Alright, so we have our design. The next thing that I've done, I've sent all the cut files and the bend details off to our manufacturer. He's going to go through and he's going to CNC router cut the parts out. So that'll be all the aluminium and all the plastic tops. The reason we want to go with CNC router is it makes it a lot easier for welding because you get a nice clean edge. Then he'll go through and he'll press break all the bends in our plates for us. In about 4 days, we should have all the parts we need to make our first prototype.
Because I'm pretty confident that I've made a few mistakes in the design of this, I'd like to build this first prototype before we start making our next design. Then if there's any issues, we can rectify them and fix it before it continues onto a whole range of product. My idea is we get this design right and we can reuse a lot of these parts for our next model. If we reuse parts, we can hold a lot of parts in stock and it gives the buyer an option of sort of customizing what they want, and we can pull different parts from different models and not have a completely new range of parts every time we make a slight change to the design. There are a few things already that I kind of want to change on it, just for looks. We'll wait until we get our first prototype made and we can look at it in person and see how it's going to look. If anyone's watching and has more experience with designing products, don't hesitate to give me any suggestions. My background is piping and heavy fabrication, so that's more of the drawings that I've done in the past. And it's always just been little bits and pieces, never full designs or assemblies or anything like that. The next part of this series is going to be actually building this prototype. That's something I'm a bit more confident with. I'm pretty excited to see how it comes out.